Well, we're into the discussions. It is your birthday today. Former president of the AGI, Association of Ghana Industries, and Elizabeth Joyce Villas. Happy 70th birthday. Not very easy to get to 70. We wish you more years on this very earth with us, and have a blast, as we call it these days. You know, our language is always buzzing with youthful exuberance. But in the meantime, though, we'll have to start the discussions. I have in the studio a former member of Parliament for Sisala West, and he's also a leading member of the PNC. And I have Haruna Bayariga in the studio. Thanks for joining us, and it's been a while. And now we'll have to look at the subject of the National Association of Teachers, that is NAT, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, opposing the directive for freeze of pay, or that very announcement. And so that story is on page 14 of the paper, The Ghanaian Times. And so just quickly would have to read whatever the story says before we start the discussions with Mr. Bayariga. But in the meantime, though, this is what the story says. The Minister of Education, Professor Jane Nana Pukwajima, has called on teachers to rededicate themselves to the profession to improve on quality education delivery. She said the ministry has declared zero tolerance for absenteeism, and any teacher found culpable could be dealt with. But the main concern on the part of the teachers was that the directive or the concern raised by government that salaries were high and so will not have an increment in their salaries, they thought was not a good thing to do. And so would want to take a look at that. Mr. Bayariga, your thoughts on the subject, particularly on the subject about likely no increment in daily minimum wage for the year, as announced earlier on by government.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I don't know the reason why government have decided to freeze salaries of workers. Workers per se, and with the salary structure and the level of salaries that we earn in this country, everybody expects that in every year there should be some sort of increment, you know, to cushion whatever they get. But if government has taken a firm decision on this issue, then I feel government will have to sit down with NAT. Government will have to sit down with NAT so that they can negotiate. I always believe in negotiation so that they can come out with an agreeable solution to the issue. To be frank, when you go to the rural areas, the input as compared to salaries in education doesn't reflect the output. In my constituency, Sala West, the BEC results this year was the worst. Meanwhile, they have recruited a lot of people, teachers, to augment the normal professional teachers. But it has gone worse. And government has paid so much to these people, teachers. They collected fat allowances not quite long ago. I got a message from home. You know, these people teachers. So if they are taking so much, what is the output? What result does government get out of it? So they need to sit down and discuss all these things. But definitely a lot of money goes into paying teachers' salaries and professional teachers and all that. So if the output doesn't match the input, then we also need to sit up and look at some of these things. What are the reasons so that we can address them? And I also wish that NAT should soften its stand and agree to meet government to discuss this issue.
Okay, well, we do understand about the talk on whether they've had recent increments and so had a lot of money, etc., or whether their salaries were now up to an appreciable level. The concern is that because it has become a norm for every year, some level of increment, at least in the daily minimum wage, many worker categories tend to have the assumption that, well, an increment is the logical thing to do.
Well, that would not be the perception. You all know the salary levels in this country. You know. You go to Burkina Faso, you go to Togo,
go to
Benin and all that. Comparably, teachers are living somehow better than in Ghana. It is a frank thing I'm telling you. You know, so I believe that we need to sit down. They need to sit down with government and discuss some of these things. And government telling them, giving them very good reasons, convincingly. And I hope as Ghanaians who are also prepared to help the educational sector grow will also reason. And
in your experiences in politics, and particularly you being a former member of parliament and having gone through your constituency, at that very level, when you go through the schools, what could be the reason why we tend to have increased absenteeism of teachers and even non-performance of teachers at that level?
A lot of reasons. You see, Ghana has developed to such a stage that if you are a diplomat, a teacher, and you go to sleep in a 2x4 room, not plastered, no lights, nothing, how can you be able to wake up the following day in the morning and impart or transfer knowledge very well, effectively? So teachers' accommodation is very important. Some of them are very far away from the main towns, that sort of thing. You know, all this, and then we came out with some allowances for teachers. Does it flow regularly? Let's look at all these things, you know, because I believe that we need to make the teacher also comfortable and very happy. You know, if you don't do that, then you still have these problems. The teacher will have to, let's assume that the only bank in my area is Tumu. So the teacher will have to travel from Golu to Tumu to go and collect his or her salary because there's no bank, no agency. No, definitely, and it's working days. And you expect him to get some money in his pocket. So these are some of the issues. Government made efforts some time ago to provide motorbikes to teachers, but it's still not sufficient. I believe these motorbikes, if those in the remote areas, if it's given, government should meet half the cost, you know, just to cushion the teacher, and he will also be very happy. You know, these are some of the issues.
Talking about motorbikes, how adequately and well or averagely should teachers be incentivized to motivate them to give a more positive output in their work?
Yeah, I believe the salary is one. I also believe teacher accommodation is one. Job satisfaction, teacher accommodation is one, because you have wife and you have children. And you have only a 2x4 room that is not plastered. And you are supposed to stay there with your wife and children. You know, if you were in that state, you will not be comfortable, and you also not be able to give out your best. You know, that is why we're having problems. Some of the reasons why we're having problems. I think the teacher welfare needs to be taken out and studied very well. And from them also contributing, meeting them halfway will solve some of the problems.
In trying to motivate teachers and then trying to tie it down to also the output level, how should we as a country go about it? Because there are some teachers who would necessarily not be willing to serve in rural areas, but we still have some who are there and have always been there all their lives.
It's a service. You know, the Ghana Education Service, like the police service and all that, is there, and people are prepared to go and serve in the rural area. Even expatriates, you know, with white colors, despite the bad conditions, they go to stay there to support us. So any teacher...
That's volunteer work. They do it for a time.
Yes.
They don't do it all their lives.
Oh, some do it all their lives. Some go to stay in our areas all their lives. The Catholic priests and all that.
But they're Catholic priests, they understand.
But they are also human beings. You know, that's what I want you to know. Because if you have Ghana at heart, the growth of your country at heart, and you are sent somewhere to go and work, and you say you won't go, you want Accra, you want Kumasi, then you are not a teacher. You don't have the profession at heart. You know, then I also talk about the accommodation. If there's the living condition is good, definitely a lot of them will be willing to go. So we have to tackle that. And coming to tackle that, you see, let me tell you something. In this country, we only want to think of the concrete building and all that. We have our traditional building that has been improved upon by the Department of Rural Development, which is very cheap. we can train a lot of the youth on this type of buildings, you know, so that they are put up a lot in the rural areas, very good ones. To be frank, if this Department of Rural Housing structure is put up and you sleep in it and go and sleep in the block and concrete and glass, you see that there is different. That one is very comfortable, you know, heat resistant. A lot of this you get from that, you know, and I believe it will help the country a lot. But now, even the district you go there, they want to give any developmental project is block work and brickwork, block work and brickwork, roofing sheets, you know, and the materials, you know, are not, they are quite expensive, you know. And when you talk of traditional, when you talk of rural housing, I don't even want to say that people should call it rural housing. It should be traditional housing, because that is improved upon our ground distance, you know, transfer this technology over to us, we improve upon it. BRI at KNUS, they have made a lot of research work, but because that one, when you do is local content, you don't make some money out of it for your pocket. This is some of the policies of the rural housing that Ghana needs to look at.
Then these could also be tied into the teachers you mean.
Yes.
Because then they could be provided with some level of housing.
Very comfortable housing.
Are we in a country where we think that because teachers are in a position where, or perhaps the state thinks that teachers are in a position where they would need to have a lot more budgetary support? As a result of that, there's that reluctance to extend to them the needed incentives for them to work.
Well, I think over the years, government is doing its best, but it needs to look at the problem of teachers again. It needs to look at the problems of teachers again. You know, like I told you, if one or two of those things are met, and there was a time that there was some incentive for teachers staying in the rural areas. I don't know whether it's still going on or it's timely, you know. These are some of the issues. We really need to look at the problem of teachers holistically and see how we can discuss, we can meet them halfway. You know.
Okay, we're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with the discussions on AM Talk.
Situation faced by the
Well, so we have to continue the discussions, and I have been joined by Nia Lotibru Hammond. He's the chairman for the PPP, and we'll also be discussing the subject of the PPP and the concerns they've been raising more recently, causing a lot of, what have you been raising?
Well, we're raising awareness, okay. And hopefully the Ghanaian is getting on with the right.
Okay. Now, let's have your thoughts on what we talked about. You know, government had early on tried, actually come out with a directive, or was there a statement, that there was not going to be a wage increment this year for workers. And we've had the labor agitations thereof. And then now not saying that they are opposing a freeze of pay increments. That is the National Association of Teachers. And, you know, they are one of the labor organized groups.
Well, when it comes to wages and salaries, you would find that most of labor in Ghana are underpaid. And that's why we have the production from them as we are getting, you get what you pay for. It's essentially what is happening. Teachers are one of the pillars in the society, in our economic development. We need to pay them well so that they can teach our youth well, so that when they come out of school, they can become productive citizens, which is what we are looking for. So I want to agree with the NAT that there should be some effort to look at their wages and ensure that they are well paid so that they can be comfortable in the classrooms to teach our youth.
Okay, now let's move on to the subject of what you have been embarking on more recently, and then undertaking demonstrations, and the last one was in Cape Coast.
Yes, it was.
Was it over the weekend?
Yes, it was over the weekend, on Saturday. Yes.
On Saturday.
Yes.
And the concerns you've been raising, there have been critics that you're causing confusion in the country.
Well, I don't believe we are causing confusion. I think this is the right thing to do. Prosperity can only be attained in peace. And if it has to be peaceful, then we need to engage our political leaders in a peaceful manner, which is what the PPP is leading in the effort to get our voice heard within the corridors of power, so that we don't wait for the day when there is a revolution, where the people are so upset, so mad, that they go out there with cutlasses, trying to obtain wherever we are in our economic development. You can see
that's a doomsday conspiracy.
Yeah, well, you can see what is happening with the nomination of local chief executives. It is raising some concerns around the country where the youth are opposing the nominees, and they're doing it violently. And I think this is a clarion call for us to try and get away from that process of nominating local chief executive, so that the people themselves can vote for the executive and end this rancor that is brewing, if I may use the word brew.
And Mr. Bayariga, the demonstration that the PPP undertook over the weekend and actually have been convening, I think from Accra they went to Kumasi thereof. In Cape Coast, it was themed Ebinum Tsiye, and it just literally meaning that some people or some others are living better. Basically, just on anti-corruption. Are we creating a situation where we're creating an atmosphere where it's perceived that there's always corruption in Ghana, where there's not? Because all these are perceptions.
Yeah, that's very true. I think with corruption, whatever you do on earth, as far as governance, countries are concerned, there will always be corruption. But you need to reduce it to a minimum, because you are not in human minds, you know. So you have to reduce corruption to a minimum. You have to plug some loopholes. You have to be very straight. You have to be very disciplined, you know, as governance.
Are we getting there as a country? The point is that we need to have a proper critique of ourselves. Are we getting there?
Yeah, I hope somehow we are getting there. It will take us time, though, because listening to the president when he was presenting the guidelines for ministers and deputy ministers, it's a very good thing on book. But whether it's being implemented is a different thing. And I will urge the president, what he said, he should go by it and start implementing some of the things in the guideline, sanctioning, disciplining, straightening people up. That's some of the things that will solve the problem. Now, coming to demonstrations, once it is peaceful, then that is okay. But like Chinua said, when the handshake goes beyond the elbow, then it becomes a different thing. Well, we need stability, we need peace in this country. When he talk of coup, there are hard jams. Because one of the finest...
We say revolution. It could be staged by young people.
It's the same.
No, that's not cool.
Yeah, that is revolution. Revolution is cool. At the end of the day, you are toppling the government, you are toppling the president. So what is
it? I get your point.
Yeah. So it's really shake me up. Because one of the finest gentlemen Ghana had was Dr. Delali, the president of the Third Republic of Ghana. Very gentle, like Professor Atani. And people don't like such people. You are getting me. But then, if Dr. Delali had been left to do his 4 years, there would have been a lot of difference The young people of today don't know his background and the history and his time in office. But let's now not even be thinking of revolution. Let's work towards preventing revolutions, whether by the youth or whoever is concerned.
I guess that's what the PPP is doing.
Precisely
the subject of anti-corruption. And then when you go on and try to enumerate what is being done inactively as against what has been said, then that raises a question of more words than action.
Well, precisely our point. We don't want to live like ostrich, which is what it appears we are doing in Ghana. Our 1992 constitution created a very powerful executive to the detriment of the economic development of the local people. And that is why we are pointing out that if we don't recognize the inherent dangers in the all absolute executive power, then there might be a time when the people will get fed up with what is happening today and go out there on the streets to revolt. Revolution does not always end up overturning a government. What it does in some other cases will be to get the government to veer towards the position of the majority of the people that are downtrodden. When you consider that in our constitution, the president appoints all of the local chief executives, you ought to agree that that does not help with economic development at the local level, because the appointed chief now holds homage to the president and not to the people that he is there to serve. And that we want the constitution amended so that the position of the local chief executive will be directly elected, just as we elect parliamentary candidates and our national chief executive, the president.
Well, according to the constitutional and governance experts, we'll get there. We haven't gotten there yet. But what merit will there be if we have a local government representative who is elected? Wouldn't it make it more partisan, and thus make it more partisan development at the grassroots level?
It will, but like he said, if the DCE is elected, that would be very good.
Why?
Because as at now, you go to the district and it's only one party, that is no party member goes to the district. You go to my constituency. I believe the government should set up, should set up not an agency, but investigate what is happening at the district level.
And what is happening?
If MPP
is in power, and they have their district chief executive there, invariably chosen by the president.
No, yes, but that is not the case. There is more to it. Then all MPP people in that particular constituency, the district belong to them. Whatever comes to help support everybody
goes to MPP.
Goes to MPP.
If it's NDC,
it happens that way. But forgetting that whatever comes belongs to all of us. It belongs to the people. Right. So if we are if the DCE is elected by the people, when it counts, he will make sure that, almost maybe 60% benefit. But now it's 100%. I'm challenging that they should set up a secret committee to investigate, and you will find out that that is very true. Well, and you see that, and then prominent people in Ghana. Let me salute Justice BCRC Crab. He called for non-partisan approach to issues. This is a very experienced man.
Well, that's a call.
Very, very old.
That's a call.
And we should listen. We should listen. These are some of the things that are dividing the country, and we'll continue to say that. You have to get a non-partisan approach, and by taking the DCE, electing him, he knows that your thumb has made him what he is, but not from the president.
Well, Mr. Hammond, going by that and a call for national and all the things that we keep hearing around, which never happened, we should also have in mind, due to the polarity we have currently in the political space, if we have these we want to implement now without perhaps curing the partisanship that we have currently, we may have elections for local government, chief executives, etc. That at the end of the day will also create a lot more polarity at the end of the day, because there will be a central government, that will be another party, and the one elected.
No.
And I can bet you in the Volta region, all the chief executive that will be elected will be NDC. And all the chief executive that will be elected in the in Ashanti will be MPP.
You will be surprised.
Where?
All the MPs in the Ashanti are not MPP.
Well, I do know. We're talking about majority. Well, and there's always a simple representation that we tend to have in our elections.
Having majority is okay. And that's what democratic principles encourages us to do, to rule by majority. So having the majority is okay. But the point of the matter is that the winner takes all attitude will now be at the end
How do we cure
of the past. Well, we cure it by allowing the people themselves to elect their own representatives. And when we do, just as they are electing their members of parliament, that reflection will continue.
Mr. Bruhamo, is that what is festering perceived corruption?
Oh, yes, it is.
How?
Because the central government now controls all of the fund that goes to the district. The district common fund is controlled by the central government, and it is using that to influence the election year after year, and that should stop.
We keep hearing that it's supposed to be participatory at the end of the day, because I remember close to the end of the 1990s when we all had all these coming in, the local government, new initiatives, etc. There was all the talk and the phrase being used, participatory and at the local government level. Has it been and will it be?
Yeah, it's always a talk show. That is Ghana for you. We come into implementing what we say. Or the government's vision has always been a program, and that is what we should change our way of doing things.
How?
It is from me and you, because government comes out with directives, and it's never followed.
See, currently we have a constitutional review implementation committee working to draft a new constitution based on the white paper that was placed on top of the Constitutional Review Commission's report. Regarding the local chief executives, the government is recommending that the president nominate 5 and send the 5 to the Public Service Commission for vetting.
Almost the same.
Out of the vetting to retain 3 for a direct election. And we see that as a conflict. Because the president nominating 5...
So it's going to be the president's nominee still going for election?
Still going for election.
Reservedly.
Precisely. And putting the onus on the Public Service Commission to retain 3. We think that will be more corruptive than the present system.
So how do we cure it then?
Well, the people are agitating that they would want to elect their own...
Which people?
All Ghanaians.
Led by the PPP?
Oh, well, not... but led by all Ghanaians. But well-meaning Ghanaians are also advocating that, just like Honorable... he's not a PPP, he's a PNC, but he's also advocating that the local chiefs must be elected by the locals themselves. That is where the power resides, and that is where the chief executives will now be accountable to the people. Right now, it's not accountable. And the president, in his press conference, says once he is appointed, he can withdraw the appointee at any time, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, even in the 89th minute. This country cannot be run.
The coach, right?
Yeah, this country cannot be run like a football club, and that is what the PPP is attempting to do.
You're not suggesting the president meant.
Well, he called himself a coach, and a coach is a football coach, and in that regard, the country cannot be run like a football club.
Well, by calling himself a coach, you should also know that he doesn't really mean that that is a coaching work he's doing. This is governance, and governance is quite different from coaching.
And that is why you can't withdraw a cabinet member in 5 minutes.
You can bring him on into some issues. I'm sure that's what the government meant.
Your contribution on the subject?
Yeah, my contribution on the subject. To be frank, you asked, how can we solve the problem? It is me and you and all of us. Our perception. I begin to think that if the chief executive is elected, and he still have that mentality, we don't change in our way of doing things, our attitude. Some of these things will persist for some time. But Ghanaians, holistically, we should try and change our way of doing things, our approaches and everything. That will solve some of the issues that we are confronted with. Yeah. You have to change.
Now, the leader of your party, Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum, during that very Ibinum Tiye demonstration convened in Cape Coast, said that there was perceived corruption, etc., and that we should scrap corruption and not rather single spine, and all the things that were said at the event. At the national level, are you happy with current inroads being made? We've had the coming into office of a commissioner in charge of it's a judgment debt. We have Yoko also undertaking a lot of investigations, etc. That all doesn't suffice? You're not satisfied?
Well, you see, you talk about perceived corruption. The Auditor General is coming out to tell us that 4 billion Ghana cedis lost annually. It's not perceived. It is actual.
Well, it's law. We don't know where it's gone.
Well,
that's the point.
But he has enumerated them. If you look at his report, it is the sum total that
he didn't say anybody embezzled or it's gone here. There are some allocations we're being told that some for ghost names, some for yes.
Well, that's precisely then you need to go and address the ghost names. If the Auditor General is able to see ghosts being paid, then you and I also ought to see the ghosts that are receiving the money. So 4 billion Ghana cedis going down the drain is not a perception. Yes, we have a commissioner on judgment that is doing the part to try to sort out this cabal that is going on with the Attorney General's office and those who want to get some money. I mean, this is the craziest arithmetic I've ever come across in history, where you cook what you want, you create it, you loot, then you share. That is terrible.
It's a perception. It's a tag coined by the opposition.
No. This is coming from the Commissioner of Judgment Debt himself. After receiving a lot of witnesses, he was amazed at the level of corruption. He never thought that the country was that low in terms of shifting marbles around in that fashion. It is something that all of us need to speak up. We need to speak up against it so that we can minimize it. Going into the 2012 election, we thought Ghana was losing 3 billion Ghana cedis annually. It turns out it's 4 billion. Ghanaians are getting frustrated about the governments they are elected. They are beginning to think that they are electing Alibaba and 40 thieves.
How do you come by all these concerns reservedly from Ghanaians?
Oh, because they are saying, yeah, boys are bread.
Who is
boys
saying
are bread?
What scientific?
Everywhere I go, a lot of people are saying boys are bread. There's Casa, boys are bread, boys are bread. And I'm sure you've heard this boys.
Well, I've heard a lot too. It reminds me just of, I think they are in movies. Those phrases are coined from movies. I don't know whether they are alluded to political suppositions.
Anyone who is receiving 6 Ghana cedis a day is wabre. Because the cost of Kenke is going at 75 pesos. His transport alone in Accra here from one location to there is 1 cedi. In and out 2 cedis out of 6 Ghana cedis. You're left with 4 cedis. You can't be here. It's simple economics. And over 60% of the society are earning less than 10 Ghana cedis a day. That is why corruption is not, doesn't seem to be budging. Because the pool to corrupt is strong. No one is earning enough to be able to live on the salary and live well. And that is something that we need to address. Whatever we do, our media, our developmental partners contribute about 40% to our budget. That in itself is something that the developmental partners ought to look at and see that they're putting in 40% and yet it is going down the drain. It is not developing the country. All of us need to support the idea of curbing corruption. If His Excellency Kofi Annan has spoken against corruption, then you know that it has gotten into the corridors of the international world. If the Asantehene is also talking about
corruption is a worldwide phenomenon. It depends on what clumps there are.
It is the level. Our level is reaching gargantuan proportions.
Ghana.
Yes.
Well, talking about corruption, we are all a contributing factor.
How? How we are a contributory factor?
Yes, because corruption takes place at the workplace. You are getting me? It takes place at the workplace, not in the presidency. You are getting me? So if you are in an organization and you allow back kicks, monies are hidden somewhere to take place, then you are also part of it. That's why I say we are all part of it. In any case, what I would want to urge the government to do, especially the president, is that anytime one is found, whether his tight friend is decent or not, he needs to take action. If it means that kicking the fellow out, kick the fellow out and be free and let that particular person be dealt with. But we kept on piling some of the things. So the perception will definitely be there that, the government is endorsing corruption or the president is endorsing corruption, which to me, I believe, might not be the case. So we need to take swift actions.
You see, my point is that the president cannot be everywhere.
Yes.
So it's the institutions that he has to look to strengthen.
Yes.
And once the
you think he's not doing that?
Obviously.
But why? He's had Yoko doing a lot more investigations. He has set up a judgment debt commissioner. You are not satisfied?
The institutions cannot be strengthened if he's appointing all of them and he can fire them in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes as he claims he can do. We have to have situations where the people that occupy these institutions are held accountable and not to the president.
Exactly. The president needs to take action on some of these things and cut himself off, because there are a lot of things that have been piled up. Excuse me to say, some are still in court. He says, so when the thing is in court, you don't have to say it for contempt of court. But you shouldn't pile up the things. As soon as it comes, this man is found to be so and so, deal with that fellow.
We have absolute power in the presidency, and therefore corruption will be absolute.
Okay, we have to change the subject. We're looking at a story on Parliament having failed the country and attributed to lawyer Samuel Kujetua-Ablakwa. And Samuel Kujetua-Ablakwa says that it was unnecessary politicization of national issues in Parliament. When Parliament was recalled and we were not able to look at that very motion is it an inquiry or an investigation into the 40s takeover of Merchant Bank. He said the MPs engaged in a heated debate on the floor of Parliament, all right, but he accused the MPs on both sides of the House of allowing their partisan interests to override their conscience and national interests. He said the conduct of the MPs posed a threat to the fortunes of the nation because Parliament was the only institution constitutionally mandated to protect the interests of the public. How was that, sir? First, your own comments on this whole saga.
Well, the saga will continue if our structures remain the way they are. And all of it is stemming from our 92 constitution. The Parliament of today in Ghana doesn't have any powers. If the presidency does not submit a bill or anything to be discussed, the initiatives cannot come from an honorable former MP is here, and if I'm wrong, he will tell me. Parliament is not what it should be. That is why this partisanship continues, because the president also now, constitutionally appoints ministers from 50% of the ministers from Parliament. So all of them, when they get into Parliament, are angling to become ministers of some sort, and therefore do the bidding of the executive. The checks and balances that we think Parliament ought to have, Parliament does not have it. If we separate the legislature from the executive, you will get a true Parliament overseeing things, and this sort of behavior will be a thing of the past.
How do we have or come to that conclusion that Parliament is not an independent body as far as the various organs of government is concerned? That's going to the extreme.
Yeah, that is very true.
Because you've been a former member of Parliament, I'll be surprised for you to say that apparently all along you've been doing the bidding of the executive. You never told us.
Well, Parliament is supposed to be on its own. That is very true.
It's supposed to be. So it's not?
No, I'm coming.
Okay.
The reason why I say it's supposed to be on its own. But the partisanship has permeated very deep into our Parliament at the moment. Let me also...
Has always or now?
Well, once in a while. Not on all issues, yes. On some issues, they agree to disagree and agree. But some partisanship comes in very strongly. Recently, that's why I'm saying that, let's listen to the old people. Jesse VCRC crowd called again and said there must be dissidents in Parliament. He was referring to the majority side. Not for only NDC, but during NPP time. Because you are whipped to such an extent that you don't know what to do.
Even though you may have a dissenting view.
Exactly.
You are just compelled to follow the bandwagon.
Which is not good for our democracy. I quite agree. It's not good for our democracy. People should be able to speak their minds out. And the whipping system should also be looked at.
Well, we're happy now you're not out of Parliament, so you're able to speak your mind. Now, being in a very neutral position now, how do we come to a certain situation where an issue that should be of national interest perhaps is reservedly also looked at in partisan lens? For example, if there had been an investigation, an inquiry into the Fortis Merchant Bank deal, what would have happened?
If there had been an investigation...
If the Speaker had allowed it, what would have happened?
If the Speaker had... In fact, the current state, the stage at which the Speaker said that if...
well, we know what the Speaker said.
Yes, we know
what would have happened. What would have happened, I'm asking.
I don't know. I can't tell. I will not be in the minds of
people. Would it have been appropriate for Parliament to take a look at it?
I would think that Parliament could have done that out, not in open view, but in camera. Because the case was also in the judiciary. Parliament should have power to be able to investigate things, but not to vie with the judiciary.
You almost sound as if you agree with the Speaker, because you're saying that the issue is in court. So,
but it should have been done in camera.
Well, court issues are also held in camera.
No, let me come in here. It can be held in camera because nothing happens in Parliament without the general public knowing of it.
Well, we know there are committee sittings that are held in camera.
Similarly, the next moment still get to know
about in the domain of the public. The next moment is in the domain of the public.
So that's the fear that will come to...
Yeah, so that shouldn't be found to be content or Parliament interfering with the legislature.
I mean, you have this in advanced countries where the legislatures are able to sit and also investigate on their own, while the judiciary is also on its part. Even the executive can also initiate its own.
We have only held that Parliament should not do anything, should not interfere in the work of the work of the judiciary.
Well, that is not an interference.
Yes,
that is not an interference.
If you say that judiciary is handling an issue and Parliament is also having in-camera meeting on the same issue, it is not correct because it will come to the public domain, and that's what Parliament is trying to walk away from.
Well, your fear is that if Parliament investigates and the judiciary is sitting to address the issue, that it will bring some conflict. It will not, because what you might uncover in Parliament, the judiciary may not cover. And when you uncover something, you can then send it to the judiciary for prosecution.
Okay, now Mr. Abrahamon, here lies a case. We've had a number of institutions, a number of bodies, and of course, the topmost political stakeholders we have, the opposition parties, etc., raising hell over this very deal. Does that give any indication that perhaps the deal was not undertaken well just because of these concerns raised?
If you look on the surface of the deal, where Fortis got 90% with a 90 payment,
90 million.
90 million payment, and consider the alternative, which was for a 75% stake with a payment of 179 million, then you see that the arithmetic doesn't add up. Why would you reject 179 million for 75 and accept 90 for 90? That is something that we need to look. That is where the perception that there is some deal that has gone on seems to be festering, because the
perceptions are not facts. Do you agree?
Well, they're not facts, but I gave you the scenario. You know, if I'm offering you 179 for a 75% stake, and you go and take 90 million for a 90% stake,
the other one is local.
something is amiss here. And
the other one is local.
And of course, embedded in that is the debt that the merchant bank is holding from EP, also equivalent to 170 million. So these are the factors that we need to look at.
You said the debt from...
the
EMP debt?
The EMP debt, yes.
The EMP debt, I think, is...
It's 170...
No. It's only 56 million, I think. I've been told.
Okay. I stand to be corrected.
It also doesn't mean Parliament will not come back to the issue again. It will definitely come back, because the minority in Parliament have raised very strong points, and I definitely believe that Parliament will come back after some time the issue has been dealt with. Parliament will come back and look at it. Actually, there's one thing that is also always between my mind, like you said, if a local
consortium or entity
is bidding for something
with a
foreign decision, where should the consideration be? You know,
well, we need to consider our own. Yeah. But you need to look at the numbers. You need to juggle the numbers as well. Yes. If the local is providing an unfavorable return, yes. I mean, business is always looking for the highest return, and therefore that's where you tend to get worried that how the decision come about.
How do we deal with issues bipartisanly and put the national interest forward in Parliament? Because often many of us have interacted, have had a lot of interactions in Parliament before, and sometimes you get to see plainly, and I'm not talking about now, it's always happened since 1993, that the size of the House go partisanly.
Well, if there is transparency, then there will be acceptance. This is a national asset, and therefore it should have been debated in Parliament. If Parliament had debated it openly, then Ghanaians would have heard the pros and cons towards the sale. But Ghanaians did not participate in the debate that went into the final decision to sell off a national asset. So if the bipartisanship would disappear, we need to have transparency in how we deal with these matters.
It will be very difficult. As for partisanship is good. Why not? Because that is the hand of the government in Parliament to see that its visions, its policies, everything goes through, and the opposition will try to punch loopholes in it. So you can't. But too much partisanship is what is killing about. Partisanship is very good for any country.
So you have been in the House before. You feel that partisanship is good, but you think currently there's too much partisanship.
Well, I wouldn't say so. I don't have
that's what you just said. So that's
why I don't have any reason to justify it.
And partisanship of this nature will continue to fester as long as our 1992 Constitution allows the President to have absolute power, even over Parliament. Because by selecting his cabinet, 50% of his cabinet from Parliament, he weakens Parliament.
We have submitted a constitution already.
Yes, we've had some considerations made. So those recommendations have been made, and also for some of those indemnity clauses as well to be to be changed. And so it's been looked at, but we'll see how it goes as well. We have been having these discussions with a senior gentleman in the studio, Haruna Bayariga. Was a former member of Parliament for Sisala West and also a member of the PNC, and thanks for joining us this morning. It's been a while. And also the national chairman for the PPP, the Progressive People's Party, Okay, National Chairman Ni Alote Bruhamon, and thanks for joining us this morning as well. It's been a very good conversation this morning. I hope to have you again in the studio for us to have a lot more of these discussions just to promote the national cause. Now, we have a lot more for you on the AM show, but please get interactive. We have a page on Facebook. Please go and search for the page Joynews on TV, and also a short code for you to get interactive with, and the short code is 1760. Right now, we're going for a short break. When we come back, we'll give you a lot more.